It was October 2024. One evening, my cousin, one of my friends, and I were on our way to math tuition, just like any other day. We were climbing the stairs when we reached a blind corner. And because of that blind spot, neither side could really see who was coming from the other direction. Suddenly, we stopped. 3 boys were standing right in front of us. One was in front of my cousin, one was in front of my friend, and one was standing directly in front of me. For a second, it was just one of those random moments where both groups adjust their paths and move on. But as we crossed each other, I noticed something. The boy standing in front of me looked familiar. Very familiar. I couldn't figure out why, but there was something about his face that felt strangely recognizable. At the time, I didn't think much of it. We adjusted our way, walked past each other, and I went to my tuition class. But throughout the entire class, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I kept asking myself the same question over and over again. Where have I seen him before? I knew I recognized him. I just couldn't remember from where. By the time tuition ended, I was still thinking about it. So naturally, I started talking about it with my cousin and my friend. And when I say talking about it, I mean I was talking about it a lot. I kept telling them, I know I've seen that guy before. I'm telling you, I've definitely seen him somewhere. After listening to me go on and on about the same person, they finally looked at me and said, Pranjal, just tell us the truth. Do you have a crush on him or something? And immediately I said, no, why would I have a crush on him? At least that was my answer that day. The next day, however, I surrendered. I went to them and said, okay, maybe I kind of like him. And honestly, I wanted to tell them as soon as possible because I had a very important concern. What if one of them liked him too? Thankfully, neither of them had a crush on him. The moment they said that, I felt weirdly relieved. And that's when everything suddenly clicked. The memories started coming back. I remembered the tuition classes from 8th grade. I remembered the smile. I remembered the moments I had completely forgotten about. And for the first time in years, I realized that the familiar face I had seen on the stairs wasn't a stranger at all. It was him, the same guy from my tuition days, the same guy I hadn't seen in years. And somehow, after all this time, our paths had crossed again. Later, I figured out what had probably happened. When he was in 11th grade, he wasn't attending those tuition classes anymore. But now, in 12th grade, he had joined again. And since I was in 10th grade and still going regularly, I started seeing him almost every day. And honestly, out of all the things I expected to happen in 2024, this was definitely not one of them. Years had passed. Life had moved on. I had completely convinced myself that chapter was over. And then one random evening on a staircase, I saw him again. And just like that, I started liking him all over again. Of course, I couldn't keep this information to myself for long. So eventually, I told my 2 best friends, Yogita and Koshi, everything. And surprisingly, they were not excited at all. In fact, their first reaction was basically, don't do this. You have your board year coming up. You're going to distract yourself. Please don't do this. They genuinely thought I was about to make my life more complicated. But by then, I had already accepted it. At first, it had just been a small attraction. But now, it was definitely a crush. So naturally, I started telling them everything. Every sighting, every interaction, every tiny update that probably wasn't even important. The funny thing is that I started seeing him almost every day. And somehow, seeing him became a part of my routine. If I saw him, my day felt complete. But on the days I didn't see him, my heart would genuinely sink. I would feel so upset for the rest of the evening. It sounds dramatic now, but that's exactly how it felt back then. And then there was my science tuition. My science class ended at 7 p.m., but there was one problem. He had a habit of leaving his tuition a few minutes early, usually 5 or 6 minutes before everyone else, which meant that if I wasn't quick enough, I would miss him completely. And trust me, I did not want that to happen. Every evening, as my science class was about to end, my heartbeat would start racing. I would be sitting there thinking, no, I have to see him today. I can't go home without seeing him. And the moment class ended, I would rush downstairs in a hurry. Not because I was late, not because someone was waiting for me, but because I was terrified of missing those few seconds when he would walk out. The stress was unreal. In my head, it felt like a mission. If I saw him, I was happy. If I missed him, it felt like my entire day had been ruined. Meanwhile, my friend Tanishka would be waiting outside the apartment building where our tuitions were held. And the funniest part? She knew exactly what I was doing. She knew why I was rushing downstairs every evening. She knew who I was trying to see. And she would just watch all of this happen as my completely normal, sensible self transformed into someone whose entire evening depended on catching a glimpse of one boy. Looking back now, it's honestly funny how much importance I gave to those few seconds. But at that time, it felt like the most important thing in the world.